You said on the weekend maybe one or two NPL debutants could be in the cards next few weeks. Could we see any this week?
You're putting the pressure on me straight away. It's pretty early in the morning for that. Look, we'll see. We've still got 2 sessions to get through, and a few things we want to tweak and improve from the performance on the weekend. But a lot of positives as well. So we'll build off that, and we'll see who makes the 18.
Supposed to have Jackie Hingett's milestone game this week, but he's bloody suspended on you.
Yeah, it's frustrating. Obviously, it's a soft yellow card as well, and it's disappointing. It would have been nice for him to get his milestone at home there, but look, it is what it is. We worry about the ones we've got, not the ones we don't have, and Jackie will get there. He'll make that number. I'm sure there's a few games left for him this year, and I know he's hungry to get to that mark. And look, he's a good loyal servant to the club, so all credit where it's due.
Jay O'Shea nominated for Player of the Month award. Just shows he's still got it. He's a great competitor for you.
Fantastic competitor, fantastic captain, just a great footballer. Technically and tactically, he's a pleasure to work with. There's a part of me, we're similar ages, so there's a part of me that's, I feel for him at times this year. Obviously, we're a team and a club, without the resources of some of these bigger clubs, and he has to shoulder a lot of that burden on the pitch. So there's a lot of empathy from me in that regard, but I still hold him to very high standards of how he has to prepare and train and lead, and he's doing a fantastic job of taking on that information and really trying to drive the team forward. Fantastic player.
I do see you at training trying to get amongst the no itch to get back out there?
Mate, I've got no cartilage, so you can forget about that. There's no cartilage in my knees. I can't move anymore. I like having a kick around with Queenie, but his knees are in worse shape than mine. He's got 2 knees in 2 different states. It looks like he can barely walk. So look, we like to get on the ball and have a spray every now and then when it rains like this. It's the perfect weather to try and wind back the clock. But no, we're past it. It's all about the young ones now and trying to pass on that information. And there's some fantastic young talent in our squad, and it makes our job really enjoyable. Just frustrated on the weekend that for all our good football and our dominance that we couldn't turn it into a result.
It is awesome to see the young guys getting a chance. And it's like at most clubs they probably wouldn't be getting the chance, but these guys are taking their chance. What do you tell them? This is your opportunity, boys. You make the most of this.
Yeah, it starts with just an identification of players that we think can become, have big careers in the game and become saleable assets is the model that we need to try and build towards. I think we've identified some really good ones and found some good ones and brought them through, and they're taking their opportunity. Then it's just about learning, and they're learning on the job at the moment. They're learning in the deep end. It's a very, it can be a very difficult time. They're under a lot of pressure, but I feel like we create the right environment here that they're growing into themselves, and we just try and give them as much technical and tactical information and understanding as they can. So when the moment comes, they can go out there and play with that freedom and express themselves. And I think that there's a few of those guys are really, showing their worth and showing their quality. And you guys like Kleiny and Harrington and Braz and Nathan and even young PK. I mean, it's obviously disappointing, the second goal on the weekend that kills the game, for us. But it's a moment where PK's going, head to head with Sakai, who's, captained teams in Europe and been to 3 or 4 World Cups and captained his country. He's an amazing player. And for PK to find that level and feel that, there's no substitute for that learning. So there's a lot of growth in those moments, albeit we suffer at the moment because of it results-wise, but there will be growth for this club. There'll be growth for those players, due to this process. And then hopefully with each window we can strengthen and make the team more and more competitive till we get back to a point where it's now a sustainable model. That's the plan.
I know you're big on bringing guys up from Brizzy and Queensland, but does it also help, there'd be blokes in other comps, other teams looking at Raw and saying, hey, these guys are giving their kids a go. I want to go and play there. Do you have blokes like that wanting to come here? Yeah,
look, I think it's also the way we play football. It's a very technical and tactical style of football, and I think it's conducive to producing footballers, and I think that's enticing to young players for sure. The fact that they can get opportunity in minutes, let's not beat around the bush. That's due to resources. When you don't have the resources to, let's say, sign players at the level and afford those players, I have to then be creative and try and find solutions, whether that's within our environment in our youth team, and that's the first place we look. And then externally, we'd like to look Queensland first and get as many of our own, because it's nice for the state and its people to be represented. Guys like Sam Klein and Lucas Harrington and Quinny and these types of guys that we can try and identify and pull through. Even an Austin Ludwig, who's done really well in the 2 games he's played for us, been fantastic, to reward another Queenslander. But then also to look external and look interstate and go and identify maybe players that aren't getting opportunity in their states, but have the right attributes that we feel can help us. And I feel like we've done a good job of finding a few of those. The next step is to not rest on our laurels and go and find another 5 or 6 more and try and produce another 5 or 6 more. And that takes time, but we're certainly on that trajectory. Your old mate Tony Popovich keeps a pretty close eye on the A-League. Does he sort of talk to you about some of these young guys? Popper keeps to himself, but like Popper's he's a coach who I know him well, and I know that he won't miss a trick. There's not going to be a player that's playing, that is eligible to play for Australia, that has a passport, that's playing professional football, that he's not going to be across. And that's a real big positive for every player in the A-League, and especially our Brisbane Roar players. These young ones need to know that he's the type of guy that'll be watching everything. But we also have to stay realistic as well, and there's a lot of depth and a lot of senior players that are probably ahead of a lot of our cattle at the moment. But if we can get as many as we can into those younger national teams, into the 20s, into the Olyroos, then that's a really good pathway to get into the Socceroos. But I feel like there's a few guys like Lucas and Quiney, they're well on their way. Yeah, and it's like, we spoke about this with Wads, like you're trying to find the right time to tell these guys to go and take their chance, and you're really big on that. We're coming to the end of the season, I guess. Is there a chance that some of these young guys could try and go over? Yeah, it is. It's a fine balance, because the player wants to go. I've felt and witnessed that myself. I went to QPR when I was 18 years old. Like you want to go, and you want to go and play and try and test yourself over in those clubs. And even if it's in the youth team and the reserve team, you want to go and test yourself and be in these big clubs and big environments. It's about us trying to educate them and prepare them to be ready for that moment, because obviously it's very cutthroat and the intensity and the level's a lot higher. So that's a part of it as well. And then you have the business side of it, which is obviously financial. And I look at a Tommy, it's probably my opinion that as a club we should hold him for another 12 months and develop him, and continues to score at the level and grow into his frame and into his identity as a striker. But obviously as a club we need the sale, and it would be nice if those resources were put back into the playing squad, but they're not always. It's not always that way. Sometimes there's bills that need to be paid, and some of that money goes towards that, which is frustrating for me, if I'm honest. But for Tommy, he gets the opportunity. We've produced a player. I think he scored 13 or 14 goals playing football, leading the line under me at this level. So for me, there's a great sense of pride and responsibility that we're able to make him make that transition from an NPL player to an A-League player and then kick on. Hopefully Tommy's still got the love for the club, that if he ever comes back to the A-League, then he wants to return here because of the way we treated him. So there's a clear process there for these players. Timing's everything, but there's a business model, and sometimes the decisions aren't necessarily football decisions. Macarthur this weekend, great chance to grab that first home win. It is, and I say that with a lot of respect to Macarthur as well, because they're a very dangerous team. They can be very hot and cold, but when they're hot, they're very hot. And you saw that last week in the second half. I think they had 32 shots on goal against Newcastle, maybe 10 or 11 on target. So when they start to flick the switch, they can really, cause some problems. But then I feel like we've got the right recipe to create them some headaches and some problems for them too. We'd like to execute a little bit better in that front third than we did the other night, but I still feel like we're in a really strong run of form, and there's a group in there that's working really hard and sticking together through this process, and that togetherness is our strength. And we really look forward to hosting Macarthur on Friday night, and we want to get a result.